and gentlemen, get on the edge of your seats because this is an Action Sports Jax special presentation. Storytellers of the 904.
Well, it's not often you get to introduce someone here on Storytellers of the 904 as maybe one of the most powerful people in sports. That's the introduction she's had for quite some time, and now brings a new league to Jacksonville as well recently here as we sit in the fall of 2025. Say hello to our next guest on Storytellers of the 904, Donna Orender. You must like that introduction.
I like that introduction, actually. I haven't gotten that introduction, but I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. It's good.
You mean everywhere you go, people don't say one of the most powerful women in sports?
It might its way.
Now the upshot part is new.
That is new, and I love hearing.
I
Right?
bet.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. I start backwards and then we go all the way back. But what do you make of when people think or say, or do you feel like you are one of the most powerful women in sports?
I think about it, that I've had great opportunities. Happy to say it's ongoing.
Yeah.
And so I never thought of myself as a powerful person. I always thought myself as somebody who wanted to make a difference wherever I was in the work that I did. And I wouldn't be satisfied if I did less than that. And I think that led me to be in positions of influence, because if you accomplish things, all right, then you have a record of performance that people say, well, if she did this, maybe she could do that. Or she did that well, and she wants to do this, let's let her do that. So, kind of like that.
Yeah. You go all the way back, like I said. I mean, from New York and Long Island. Did you have a passion for sports right away?
No, from the time I was a young kid, I loved sports. And I loved playing sports. That's what I did. I mean, I played 7 sports in high school. Wow. You don't get to do that these days.
No,
I think
can't.
you can't. Maybe you play 2 or 3, but it's funny. A mom came to me recently and asked me something about whether it was her daughter or her son. I couldn't remember, about playing sports. And I said, whatever you do, make sure they continue to play multiple. It's just so developmentally advantageous and important. And kids are they are burning out early because we get them, in a slot so young. I don't know if they think their kid's going to win the Olympic lottery or what it is, but there's a chance. I mean, the opportunity to excel really comes from playing in multiple sports and then specialize.
So this is like late 60s and 70s.
We don't talk about age or numbers or dates. This is storytelling. Right. So it's like last year. Go ahead.
Where did that influence come from? Did you just pick it up? Was it family ties?
It was my dad. My dad loved sports. I grew up in New York, so he loved the Jets. He loved the Mets. I'm still a huge Mets fan. He loved the Islanders, although we weren't big hockey fans at the time. Ironically, I'm very involved now with sort of sports and hockey. But and he read the newspapers all the time, and those are the days when you read the newspapers, and the newspapers were big, and you can't see around them. And so my dad would be at the table with this big newspaper reading the sports, and I figured, well, if I knew a little bit about sports, maybe then I could get behind the newspaper and talk to him. He was a semi-pro soccer player himself as a young boy when he was growing up. And so I think it was really his love of sport that encouraged me to engage in playing.
And you obviously would gravitate to a bunch of different sports, as you mentioned, but I saw something where there's a story about you playing on the boys' tennis team.
Yeah,
really, that maybe opened your eyes to where the rest of your career would go. I don't know. Maybe I'm jumping to that. I don't.
You know what? I look back now and can see a pattern, but at the time, I didn't. I just played everything. I loved field hockey. It's funny, I talked to a woman earlier today who was a field hockey ref. We don't play field hockey here.
No, we don't.
But it's a big Northeastern sport,
is.
And I really love playing field hockey. And I played volleyball, and I played softball, and I played, basketball, and I ran track, and I vaulted in gymnastics. And it was funny, I had all these girlfriends said we were cheerleaders, and I said, I don't really think that was a sport, but I also did cheerleading, but not like, what Angie Baselli leads here in Jacksonville and one of the best cheer teams in the country, right? No, if I could do a split and, say the words right, then you could be a cheerleader. But when it came to tennis, that would have been, I guess, the 8th, if you count cheerleading, with all due respect to cheerleaders today. Wasn't when I was when I was young. I realized I wanted to play tennis. I was a really good player at a young age. And so there just wasn't a place for me to play because there wasn't a girls' tennis team.
Yeah.
And it didn't, to this day, I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't know why I thought I could just go up and ask, but I did. And I do think about the best advice my mom gives me, and my mom's still here giving me advice, was if you don't ask, you don't get. So I went to the coach and asked him and said, hey, can I play? And that was daunting.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, he was this old man. Like, what's an old man when you're 14, right?
Yeah.
For all I know, he could have been 25, but he wasn't. He was probably in his 50s, would be my guess. And he was an old Marine, and he had, like, you know, hair that was pointed, and he was gruff voice. But God bless him. Like, the lesson he taught me that I learned much later in life was, you can win if you can play this guy. I really like this guy too. If you can beat him, then you can be on the team. So it was about opportunity. He gave me opportunity. He'd say, no, you're a girl, you can't be here. But if you can beat him, then you can be on this team. And so, of course, what was I going to do?
Yeah.
I was going to beat him.
You were going to beat him. And you did.
And I did. And I got on the team. And I got a varsity letter. And it also taught me which sports I like better, right? Because tennis is much more of an individual sport.
Yeah.
And it was kind of lonely for me. Very interesting mental game that you play. I mean, everything about sport is mental as well as physical. But tennis especially. And that's when I really knew that I loved basketball.
Yeah. And that's why more team aspect you gravitated?
Yeah, totally. I just loved the game.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you're a good athlete. I mean, you were pretty good in high school playing basketball too, I would assume. To get to play college. I mean, you're pretty good.
No. I played, I went from playing basketball in high school. I played in the Rucker League in Harlem. I played at AAU with the best players in the city, and then ended up playing on one of the best teams in the country. At a time when, playing in the best teams in the country wasn't that easy because there were a lot of them. I mean, it's funny. Someone was talking to me the other day about Nancy Lieberman and Old Dominion, and Annie Myers was before me at UCLA. Cheryl Miller was after me. It was a heady time. There were great athletes playing at a high level without a lot of resources.
Yeah, and so you play at Queens College, and how was that experience?
It was amazing. I mean, honestly, we played because we loved to play. We were so good in the state of New York, like other New York schools weren't even allowed to play us because it wasn't a challenge.
Really? You were that good?
We were that good. And we were top 10 in the nation. The year I joined was the year they finished second in the nation to Immaculata, very famous Kathy Rush coach team. She was, Immaculata was amazing. And we got the opportunity, and we worked hard. My coach was amazing. The lessons she taught me then are still lessons of today, and fundamental basketball stuff, right? Like there's things that you still gotta know in order if you want to excel. And she taught me those things. We recently had a reunion because she was inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. She's 92 years old.
Wow. Cool.
And it was cool. It was cool. I thought it was going to be great because I think she was so under-recognized, her pioneering contributions. But then to see them realized was just a phenomenal experience. And then there were women who played on teams before me. There were a couple that played after me. We all went. And, leave it to my coach at 92 years old, gets up on the stage, makes an incredibly moving and important talk about women in sports. And then says, some of my players are here, stand up. And we all stood up. And she goes, okay, take a lap and you can sit down. I'm like of course, it never changes. It never changes.
Well, can you give us a sense of the climate of women's sports at the time? I mean, did you feel like it was different than it is now? Because it certainly is different than it is now. But in real time, did you feel that?
Of course we felt it was different.
Yeah.
But I was also playing on a very celebrated team. And my freshman year, I had literally don't say the year, I had just turned 17, maybe a week before.
Wow. You were young.
I was really young. And I was, we played in the first women's the women's first collegiate game, women's game in Madison Square Garden, which is the mecca of basketball in the world. And, there were over 12,000 people there in the Garden. New York press always treated us well and covered us, which was amazing at the time. Remember CBS Sports Spectacular came, Phyllis George came and interviewed me, and she asked me, so did you ever think about playing professional? And I looked at her and said, There's nothing in front of me that says I can be a professional. So I've never even thought about it, ever. But there we were. I was like, this freshman playing the number one player guard in the country. Interestingly enough, she ended up working as a coach in the WNBA when I became the commissioner.
How about that?
Like a small world tournament. But she was also at the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame to honor my coach, Lucille Cavalas, and her coach, Kathy Rush, was there. It was just this amazing gathering. And to be there and do that gave us a real sense of, what it could be. And I think as I look back on the history of women's basketball, there's been these series of bubbles. And I think we were fortunate to play in them. That said, there weren't a lot of scholarships. None of us had scholarships. We were lucky to have rolls and butter for lunch, wrapped in tinfoil, which is really special. But like a lot of the things, like these kids are flying around on planes. I don't begrudge them anything. I do not. I am happy that they get treated with equity. Yeah. I think that's what's important. I think we felt celebrated, but we also understood that we were not being treated with equity.
Yeah, there was a difference.
There was always a difference in terms of the court time we got, or the amount of, maybe sneakers we got, or uniforms, or resources, and all those things. And our coach was constantly fighting for us to get kind of the opportunities and the resources that we should have. And, considering we were far more successful than the men's team at the time.
Yeah.
We loved them, don't get me wrong, but we were much more successful.
Yeah.
And not only locally, regionally, but nationally.
That's interesting. And then you would eventually go play professionally, as you said, for a few years. Honestly, without looking that up, I wasn't too keen that there was women's professional basketball.
There was.
At that time.
There was.
What was that like?
Well, first of all, I get a call. We're putting together a women's professional basketball league. Would you like to play? Like, of course I would like to play. Now, by this time, I had graduated. I was in graduate school. And I said, of course I'd like to play. And they said, okay, we're putting a team together in New York. It was my AAU coach that was coaching it when we started. We were practicing in a gym on Long Island. And I don't forget how many teams there were when we started. 8 or 10, but they were across the country. There was the San Francisco Pioneers. Oh. Interestingly enough, like in the small world category, you're around long enough. The current president of the San Francisco Giants baseball team was the marketing manager for the San Francisco Pioneers. We still know each other. Larry and I still know each other.
How about that?
But this is funny. So I was playing for the New York Stars, and we would get on a plane in the morning, fly to San Francisco, play that night, get on a plane, and take a red eye home. So we wouldn't have to spend money for a hotel.
Wow. Now, a lot of leagues do kind of work that way from a hotel standpoint, but maybe not across the country.
Yeah.
That's pretty unusual.
Pretty unusual.
So it's like a 30-hour trip with a game mixed in.
Yeah. And, we appreciated the opportunity at that time. We realized that we were pioneering in the space. I loved playing and being a professional athlete more than anything. It was a real special experience. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. But it was kind of like, it was hard. It was really, really hard. Owners didn't know what they were getting into, right? The economics were always challenging.
There's no blueprint at the time for that.
But they did it. And this was like, whatever years these were, they did it for 3 years. And I was fortunate, very fortunate. I did not know this until we were inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, that I was only one of 12 players that played all 3 seasons.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah, but that was just like a luck of the draw. I was lucky, and I was good enough to stay, I guess. But all 3 seasons until I found myself unemployed at like 23.
If you don't mind me asking, do you remember how much you made to play women's basketball at that time?
I negotiated my own contract. Of course I did. I was 21 years old. I should negotiate my own contract. And so when I was playing for the Stars, I met with the owners. They were really nice guys. I said, here's the deal that, you have to pay me. I'm going to be the highest paid player on your team. It was pretty, I don't know if I was cocky. I was just like, I think I should be. And they said, no, we have Althea, who was my teammate, God rest her soul. And we played together 4 years in college, and she was 6'2", and she was a large, strong woman. She was great. Althea's going to be I said, what are you paying her? They said $5,500 for the season. I said, great, you'll pay me $5,000. And they said, fine.
Oh, quick negotiation. Pretty good.
And that was it. Honestly, that was it. That was my negotiation.
How about that? So you're unemployed, though, at 23 after the 3-year stint. And then what?
24. Yeah.
Or 24.
I could be 23, 24. I was kind of like, okay, what do I do now? And I knew I loved sport. So I figured I would get into, I played, had great relationships with the media. I had my own little cable television show at the time. And I thought, I'll do media. So I came back to New York and started interviewing around. And there was a service at the time called Sports Phone.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is that was the time, really for bettors, actually, where they'd call in and get the scores live. And I did that. And then I ended up getting an interview at ABC Sports, which was the pinnacle of sports television at the time.
Yeah.
It was the
Wide
network
World of Sports.
Wide World of Sports. I worked for Jim Hay, network of the Olympics. And I was just a little runner. I got coffee, but if I was getting coffee, I was going to get coffee better than anyone else. And that's really,
Yeah, you were a hustler.
That's it. I was gonna do it well. I did research. Dave Dials, Jim McKay, all those announcers on college football. I actually researched college football, and then that led to a job ultimately at the network, and that was the beginning of my career in sports media.
Did you think at that time like that was your career? That was going to be like, hey, I'm going to carve this out in broadcasting of?
I kind of did, but I never, interestingly enough, I never thought that far ahead.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I did. I happened to be in a special place. I actually worked in sports promotion. And so the sexy part was working in the trucks, where you sat next to the producer or director. You start out as a production assistant, you move your way up, you become a producer. So I thought that's the line you do. For us, we were back at the shop. But for me, it gave me a window on how the whole business ran, how the network ran. And it also gave me a whole idea about marketing and promotion that was highly unique. And I really appreciated that. I would cut promos. I would produce things that, the other kids had to wait a long time to do.
Yeah.
Eventually they would, like a lot of my friends, some of the guys I still work with are in the Monday Night Football truck right now, or they could be in the World Cup truck or anywhere else. A matter of fact, Bob Iger was one of my bosses.
Wow.
He runs Disney.
Yeah.
I used to hang out in his office as a kid. So it was really a heady experience.
Yeah, I bet. Sounds like it.
But then I got I got recruited to leave ABC to go to the Dolan's company. This is so interesting. It is it's like a history of sports and television and media. So at that point, it wasn't Dolan.
James Dolan.
It wasn't James. It wasn't Jim. It was his dad. So Chuck Dolan, if people don't know, he founded HBO. He founded then Cablevision, right, which was cable, and then he started Sports Channel, which is the first time regional sports networks were happening.
Yeah.
I think Jim was around. I didn't really see him. There were other people I saw, but I loved Chuck. Everybody loved Chuck. He was just a phenomenal man. And because I was a tennis player, he was a tennis player. Again, I'm really young. I used to play. He would invite me in his tennis matches.
Really?
Holy moly! How did I get here?
Well, you were pretty good.
How did I get here? And from there, I also worked in promotion, but then I started working on the Mets and Fran Healy and all these great stars. And then they started to build their regional sports network. Again, very interesting bird's eye view for me from a business perspective. I'm not working at the big network anymore. I'm working here. But I wasn't there not even a year, and I get a call again that says, hey, we want to start the NFL films of the PGA Tour. And so we would love to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. So it's a former PGA Tour golfer who has relationships at the networks. And I said, sure. So he takes me to a very fancy restaurant in New York City. And I'm like, whoa, this is really nice. He goes, well, this is what I want to do. And I want to know if you'll help me come run it. I am literally 25 years old.
25,
yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I decide that after I'm going to leave Rainbow. But actually for a period of time, I overlapped. I did both jobs.
Oh, okay.
Because I could. And then I ended up moving over to the actually first day of operation of PGA Tour Productions in New York City. Our offices we shared with the Forest Hills tournament, which is actually the precursor to the U.S. Open.
About that.
Isn't that amazing?
Really cool.
Yeah, really cool. I had 4 tapes on the shelf. I started to hire a team. We built a facility, a production studio like you have here, but more video than just talking. And we started to operate. And then we took over inside the PGA Tour. Very, very famous producers started in California, but we really took it over. And I produced the first 91 shows, which is why these golfers today. Like Corey Pavin was my first Rookie of the Year. And we're still good friends.
Yeah, that's cool.
It is really
He's a good
cool.
guy, too.
He's the best.
Right. All right, you got me fascinated here on a lot of different things, but I'm a TV geek or media geek a little bit when it comes to this. So why were they calling you? I know there's probably a level of humility here, but why are you one of the phone calls? Are there somebody that you're working with, Chuck Dolan or another ABC, that really recommends you here?
No,
or
I don't.
Is your name starting to kind of roll around in these circles?
No, how did I get? No, actually, first of all, to work at ABC, that is those kind of jobs. You generally know somebody or you're somebody's kid.
Yeah.
I was actually a total no name, no one.
And you got in.
And I got in.
And it had a lot of cachet.
It did. Yeah. It did.
Even in the roles you were in at the time.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody was somebody's somebody.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Okay.
I worked hard.
That's pretty neat.
I worked hard. And when I got there, I think that got recognized to a degree. That's why I always tell kids today, even today, they'll say, "All right, what kind of advice do you have for me?" I said, "Love the work, do the work, be the work." It's like there's no shortcut.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
And aren't we all looking for that?
No, there's no
Right?
shortcut.
Yeah.
And I think work is character building. I really do. Of course, right now I'm a little tired from all the work, but okay. I know that the other side will come. The PGA Tour job, I knew a lawyer who was a very, very close friend, and he knew the guy who was looking, and so he recommended me.
I see.
So that was kind of a New York networking thing.
Okay.
So when
And
I
then
met
an
him,
opportunity.
that's it.
That was an opportunity. And so you still like to tap into that,
Oh,
even
I
though
do.
you're so managerial, if you will, now, or...
Well, when you think about Generation W, the way I approached it actually was as a producer. Like,
Yeah.
what's the kind of how do you give people content or information to learn that lets them sit in it and feel it and want to embrace it and really hear it? How do you do that, right? And all of that really comes from my days of being a producer.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean?
Yeah. Before, I'll forget this a little bit later, but eventually when WNBA commissioner and you're working TV deals and now in the rest of your career, how much did that kind of groundwork at ABC and in that television industry help? Or was it a totally different animal because it's business instead? Or?
No, not at all. I mean, I had the business. I was developing the business side, so that was great. But when I got to the tour, and which the tour wasn't direct. In between starting a PGA Tour Productions, eventually leaving that, starting my own company. So then again, I started my own company. That teaches you so much.
Yeah.
So by that time, I always talk to people about business that I was fortunate. I worked for a big public company. I worked for a startup, if you will, in the sports channel networks. Then I worked out of my own pocket. And if you can look at the business world from those three purviews, you learn a lot.
I bet.
You really learn a lot. And so by the time I got picked up to work for the tour, and honestly, I had my own company when I worked for the tour. I was telling this to Tom Lehman last night. He was asking me about that because essentially I worked for Tom Lehman when I worked at the tour. He goes, "Well, just tell me, how did it start and what did you do?" And it was like, well, I had my own company and the tour hired my own company, but they knew me because I had actually helped to build PGA Tour Productions from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And other people wanted me to do stuff, and I did it. Then the tour said, "Well, we're going to bring it down to Florida." They said, "We want you to help us set it up here." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." I did. We moved to Bay Meadows, and we built PGA Tour Productions there. And then I started recruiting people down, and then, we grew fast. But I also knew how to negotiate and build the company at the same time. And that's what was happening. We were growing, and it was so really exciting. And so after about 9 months, that's when I told them I was going to go home. They said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "No, I think I want to do this." They said, "Okay." And I said, "But will you buy my company?" And they said, "Yes."
Wow.
And they did. I stayed.
Huh. Wow. When along the way, we'll get a little personal life in here. Did you meet your husband, MG Orender, obviously very big in the golf world around here? We might have him on a different show on Storytellers of the 904.
Well, it's always good when we don't tell our story together because I'll be looking at him like, "You're going to say that about how we met?" I met him here. He was a PGA. He was a professional golf pro, right? A PGA pro. He was in the chairs for the PGA of America, and the PGA hired me, my company, to do their first video annual meeting. They never had video at annual meeting. They hired my company to do that. We created that out of scratch. We figured it out, and it was in New Orleans. And he was at that meeting, and that's when I first met him.
Okay.
And so he was the host of the biggest party on Bourbon Street on Halloween, and and then one thing led to another after a couple of years, and then.
Yeah. It'll be a good subject on Storytellers of the 904 at some point. You guys might be the only husband and wife that end up on two different segments, but you can't be on the same one. You've got too much stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want to keep you forever.
No, he's great. He is really, really great. But we did used to argue like who was in the real golf business. And it's really funny because we really occupied two very different sides of the golf industry. And I felt fortunate and he felt fortunate because together we had a total like a 360 view.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he understood what
Instead
I
of
was trying to do.
on a holistic view.
Totally,
Yeah.
right? So he had the consumer, retail, playing side. I obviously had the media, business, professional golf side. And they impact each other. And I would learn a lot from him that I wanted to bring over to the tour, and he learned a lot from me that he was able to bring back. And so now, we have Blue Sky, and he can talk about that here. That came from some of the other work that we were able to do. And I'm so proud of that place because I think it speaks to the every golfer. And I'm a big believer in making sure like the every golfer is seen, heard, can play, can have fun. At the same time, there's Glen Kernan or Palencia or, all the other courses.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole, I guess, array of opportunity. And I love to make sure that everyone has a whole array.
You end up with the tour, I think, for 17 years.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
A long time.
And what a time, right? And some of those times are really good times with the tour as it's
Well,
starting to really grow and take off. And
I don't think it's really funny that you ask me and I reflect for a moment. Like the tour always had early on a kind of inferiority complex, right? Because you had the big four.
Yeah.
You had football, baseball, hockey, and basketball. Basketball first. That wasn't the order of importance. Hockey was always the last one.
Yeah.
And we wanted golf to be one of those. And at the same time, I remember NASCAR. NASCAR wanted to be that because they were kind of on the outside too. NASCAR did a really good job of elevating their stuff. And I watched them and I said, okay, this is how they're going to do it. We can do it too. And in that day, we had great stars. It was prior to Tiger. Mm-hmm. But, there was Greg Norman when people still loved Greg, and there was Freddie Couples, and there was Ben Crenshaw, and there's Lee Trevino, and there's Jack Nicklaus.
Tail end of that.
I mean, like, there were great, great stars. And the question was, how do we elevate that? And PGA Tour Productions was a big part of the storytelling early on. I think we were way ahead of our time. Although you had NFL films. I did some work for David Stern. That's how I ended up going to the WNBA. Anyway, and NBA Entertainment was excellent. It still is. And then we wanted to really push ours. And, our athletes were different. They weren't team athletes, right? So we had to build a lot of trust early on to make that happen.
Yeah, and golf has
I know you as a reporter and working in a community, like a lot of your success, Brent, just watching you comes from how good you are at relationships and building trust with athletes. Because when they trust you, they'll share with you.
Share a little bit more, yeah. So you get the call from David. Should I skip past the PGA Tour? That was 17 years. I can't just skip past that. But you're obviously on the forefront of a lot of things that we see today, really on this production standpoint. Everybody now embraces and owns and continues
ShotLink,
to push.
We pushed for ShotLink. I created that with a couple of people at the tour. Now I think it's really the backbone of so much of the tour's work. Pushed an idea. We were the first to do a streaming event. I still have the poster. What's the name of the company? Remember the guy? We were the very first to stream something on the internet. I did the 17th hole. And we did over 1 million streams. Obviously, the internet broke when we did it, but it was the first ever.
That's pretty cool.
It is really cool. We did, I don't know, my husband was telling me, sometimes he'll say, do you remember when you did this? I'm like, no. He goes, you really for this? And I love him when he does that, but we kind of moved on. Our production studio, our production facility, we built that whole thing down there. And then negotiations, when I moved into the, on the broadcast side, really reshaped the entire television category for golf. We built Early Round. That wasn't a franchise before that. We put them in different kind of like theme pockets for networks. We brought more networks in. Then we took the international rights and we built them from scratch and took them away from IMG, took them away. You know, they had the ability to bid, but by that time we built a business that we could 4x what they were going to give us. So it was time to take it in house.
Yeah. Think about that before we move on to the WNBA. When you're now no longer a part of that, let's say, how proud of you are of what it has grown into, if you think about golf. Do you feel like, oh, darn, I wish I would have stayed and been a part of that a little bit longer? How do you view things that you now left behind, but you were the one to help or part of the group that helped kind of get it off the ground and start elevating?
You know, it's funny because I don't feel like I wish I had stayed longer.
Yeah.
I don't. I think I was ready to move on based on the culture and many different things. I think my brain was like, it needs to be challenged in different ways. I felt incredibly grateful and fortunate that so many people were good to me, helped me along the way, taught me things. It was incredible. And I feel grateful I sat in this seat where I literally had relationships with media across the board, right? So when you work for a sport, so I had a relationship with NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, USA Network. You go all the way across, and then go Canal Plus and all the ones internationally. It was fantastic. Now, when you work for one of those, if you work at a, I'm trying to think, let's say if I worked at NBC, then all I get to work with was my NBC properties, right? So, either side, it was really different. But I was just with my NBC friends at the Ryder Cup. We're still all friends. I mean, the life we have lived together, interestingly enough, is not something that part will never go away.
Yeah. Now, were you at all on tour thinking the women's side of golf? Or was that something that kind of sparked when you went to the WNBA, your mission?
I didn't, I didn't really think about it. If there was something that they asked for help or whatever, I was all in on my mission, right? I think I will say this. One of the things I was really proud of was I was able, with our production company, we brought a lot of golfers and writers onto the air, right? So early on, I'm just trying to think who did that. Maybe Frank DeFord was on the air, but there were no golfers, right? So God rest his soul, Tim, Jaime Diaz, and then a lot of players you'll see on the air now. Peter Costas, Gary McCord, even David, like all of these guys, we gave many of them their shot.
Big names in the golf world.
Oh yeah, on inside the PGA Tour or whatever, the things that we were doing. That was just so much fun. That was really so much fun, and it was great to see how their lives have gone on to be as successful as they were.
Pretty neat. What parallels? So David Stern ends up giving you a call.
Actually, it was Adam Silver.
Or Adam Silver, I'm sorry, yes. But you had known David Stern?
I know them both. Yeah.
Okay.
Because my company...
NBA commissioners, by the way, David Stern
my
and Adam
company was hired by the NBA to produce a pet project for David Stern. It was called Coach to Coach. And David was brilliant. He understood that coaching was an integral part of raising good youth players in the youth game. Coaches in the youth game weren't that great. And so he said, if I get my NBA coaches and create a instructional video, remember that was the time of VHS, I think that would be a big help in the industry. And he hired me and my company to do that. So here I am, Billy Cunningham, Bernie Bickerstaff, Rick from Louisville, who was in the NBA at that point in time. You name every great coach, and I had them. Diamond offense, diamond defense, this, that, whatever. It was amazing.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But the funny thing is that I hired a director I work with a lot, and I really loved him. He was a great guy. But after like one shoot, I realized he didn't know basketball. So finally I said, Red, practice basketball.
So you did it?
I did it.
So you were producing and directing it? Basically?
Yeah, it was fun. I had a good team. I had a really, really good team. But it was so amazing. And my favorite guy was Chuck Daly.
Oh, yeah.
He was, like we stayed in touch forever after that. He was such a warm, engaging, funny, great guy.
Very
So
good.
that's
So
kind of cool.
So you get Adam Silver calls you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he
So-
did.
And
I said,
through all that, obviously some connections and doing some work with David Stern and the NBA.
oh yeah,
But
Adam
it
and I have
lands
been
on
friends
Adam
forever.
Silver, and all of a sudden you're go from the PGA Tour to WNBA
It wasn't all of a sudden. It took a little
commissioner.
while.
It took a little bit.
Yeah, it took a little while, but yes.
That's an interesting jump.
It was. It was. Basketball's always been my love. I still love. I mean, I love golf, but basketball was always my love. But I think the way I looked at it was kind of time to go. The tour was, someone said to me, "You're not going to do this."
Oh,
That's
there
like-
you go.
It's like putting a red cape in front of a bull. Really? I'm not? Really? I'm not. No, I think I really am actually going to do it. And you realize there's not many jobs like that. And I felt blessed. I still feel blessed. I felt that all the learning that I had, the experience I had, connections I had, it was time for me to take it because I feel to this day I am who I am because I was an athlete, put them to work for the league. So I said, it took me a while because Adam would call me, goes, it's kind of time. Are you coming or you're not coming? You need to decide. But I had little kids.
Yeah, you wrestled with it.
And I had to. I wasn't an automatic, I'm coming. Not because I didn't think it was great, but I had to figure out my life. And I have a husband and kids. And, usually if it's a husband, he goes, yeah, I'm going. So it was a team effort. And Team Orender said, you got to go. So I went.
What was the WNBA like at the time? And in your, you obviously accomplished a lot in that stretch, from TV deals to other things. But where did it start? Where did it finish?
Well, it was.
In your opinion?
It was one of the biggest surprises ever. I always talked about. I said I didn't anticipate. I couldn't anticipate, right? The amount of anger and bias, and phobia, and racism, and all the. I mean, I had no idea. When I got there, it wasn't even like the plugs weren't in the wall. The wires were ripped out. And it was stunning to me. And so I knew I had a lot of work to do, if it was even possible. And remember, I got there, the recession, like what a great gift, right? And it just wasn't a great feeling about the WNBA and its longevity.
Oh.
But I had a job to do. And I was a missionary. And I felt like it was a litmus test on my life. It was very personal for me, right? No one was going to tell me that what I believed in, what I dedicated my work to, that was not going to be able to be sustainable. So we set out to rebuild the underpinning of the WNBA, the belief system, the media access, the sponsorship support, all of it.
How much of that was just, I won't fail because you're so competitive and driven? And how much of that was you really believed that this product could sustain and be successful?
I fully believed it could, and failure was not an option. It meant too much. My favorite parts were not being in the office. My favorite parts were being in the arenas, right, where I saw families, young and old and white and black and brown, and having the times of their lives. And our athletes were incredible. They were just so dedicated and pure. And there's still, I know there's lots going on right now in terms of money and all of that. I get it. And I always thought they should be paid more. I also knew the reality of the business and what it could sustain. And so everybody was all in, right? Even though it was hard. Diana Taurasi was in, right? Sue Bird was in. Lisa Leslie was in. All these, Cheryl Swoops was in.
Big names.
Were they happy about not getting enough money? No. But we were all committed to making it work. And so, therefore, we had this opportunity and time to make it work. And in a time where every single day someone said, you're going to fail. It's going to close tomorrow. It's going to close tomorrow. And the NBA, they invested a lot of money.
Did it almost shut down?
No, it didn't almost, but there were threats. There were owners who said, we're not doing this anymore. Why are you wasting the money? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but it wasn't like anyone wasn't going to make payroll tomorrow. That wasn't happening.
Yeah.
But there was kind of a pall over all of it. And everyone's like, and the thing is, when people think a company's going to go out of business, what happens? It's like a run on the bank. The bank loses all its money. And I'm like, that can't happen.
Yeah.
And so I had to build this belief system. And it took 3 years. because the third year people stopped asking about when you were going to go out of business. Doesn't mean they didn't think it, but it slowed down. And that was because we began to build attendance. That's the game. The game is attendance. Oh. And so I said, okay, if that's the game, then we're going to win that game. And we had our incredibly fantastic internal team, this basketball ops team that worked on all the NBA teams and came up with a strategy and went out and implemented it. This day, I'm grateful to Scott. Scott now runs LIV Tour, and Chris, who runs OVG, and all of us were like this little team and really battling away, all the boogeymen and women, so that we can create success.
Was it some magic formula that got attendance up, or was it just a good vision executed well? Why do you think attendance jumped?
I think the NBA, I've talked about this a lot. The NBA is a phenomenally run organization. And they have the ways of doing something. And if you talk to David, he has his ways of doing something. But they didn't want to see that the WNBA was different in many ways. So the NBA's business was based on season tickets, corporations, business. Well, now you have a WNBA, it's a summer league, right? And a lot more women were involved, and they bought tickets differently. And so it was I think sometimes you get blinded by your own familiar. This is how we do it. Yeah, and then you say, I want to do it differently. Well, no, we can't. No, we got to do it differently. And finally they bought in, and we went all in on group sales, all in. And it was game changing.
That was it. So you build up the WNBA, you get it to where it's really going pretty well. And sooner or later you don't stay at the WNBA. What was all that?
I felt like first of all, everything they told us we couldn't do, we did.
Yeah. So you were proud of that, obviously.
Beyond. I thought it was still. I thought we got to a point of sustainability, even though there were a lot of questions about a lot of franchises. But I still think we got to a point of sustainability. The media was giving us great coverage. Up until Caitlin, other than opening year, we had the highest television ratings. Right, we literally had the highest television ratings. We had the highest attendance. The years I was there, we really built a proof point that the WNBA can work, and I feel incredibly proud of that. And we actually got money back for the first time. We actually got money back to the teams for the very first time, and
heck of an accomplishment.
That was huge. It was huge that we were able to do that. But people started to believe, our attendance was up, our digital was launched and up, our sponsorship was up at the hardest time, right? The hardest time, our sponsorship nationally, locally. We did really, really good things. So when it was time to go, it was time to go. And I was worried. I was worried whether it was going to stay, but I felt it had the legs to stay.
Yeah. While we're on WNBA, let me ask you about some current things. You just mentioned Caitlin Clark. How do you view?
I love her. How could you not love her? She's amazing. Her talent, what she's done. I don't understand, other than I lived through the Tiger years. I knew Tiger when he was a very, very young man. I knew the internal jealousies that happened at the PGA Tour that questioned him, even though, and I remember people saying, this kid is bringing you millions of dollars. What's your issue? Well, he gets all the television and I'm not getting anything. And so I've seen it before in that way. I think she's an extraordinary young woman. I think she's an extraordinary talent. I can't wait till she gets healthy to watch her play. Her game is electrifying. Everything about her. I love her. I think she's fantastic. And I hope that she'll be able to come back and continue to elevate her own performance where she feels good about her game and elevate the game in a way that no one has done as high as of a level as she has. I had Candace Parker, so Candace Parker did that, right? Yeah. But she's taken another notch, and it doesn't diminish what anyone else has done.
What about the current state of pay and where we are in the WNBA?
All of that's going to take care of itself. I mean, there's more money. The players are going to make more money. And it's a contentious negotiation. I don't know why. I did 2 CBAs. My first one was really contentious. There was a time, I don't know if that was when Billy Hunter was still there or not. He's the NBA guy. So people have different styles of negotiation. And so everybody gets all amped up and whatever. It's like, okay, fine, we can make through that one. The second one came and I said, I really want to change the dynamic on this one. And so I had a request. I wanted certain lawyers in, and I wanted certain lawyers to sit on the side. And then I really worked hard to reach out to the union. And, the whole time I was there, every city I'd go to, I'd set time away and want to take players to dinner. And I thought that was a cool thing to do. And some of them are like, they're young and like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, I just wanted to know them.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to know me.
As the commissioner. Yeah.
And so when the second negotiation came, it was much more friendly. We understood that we both wanted the same thing. The owners had the capacity to do this and this and this. They were, hard on this and this and this. And we said, okay, where can we come together and compromise? And it was like almost a pleasant thing. Like we did it.
Yeah.
Right. Not every point was like you mean there was certain, but we understood that we were aligned.
Yeah.
And they felt like the owners actually wanted to take care of them and do the best they could under the business, and that was really important.
So that you can accomplish it that way, which is nice.
You can. I think there's different personalities involved now, and that has a real impact. But at the end of the day, understanding the business, which is, by the way, very, very complex.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're going to make a lot more money, and they should. And the owners are doing a great job, and I think they want to do as best and the right thing that they can do too. So it bothers me that gets lost, in all of this.
Yeah.
Because these owners, the ones that are there now, been there for 20 years. They've
believe
invested year after year after year, and not making money. Now there's a chance where they've built an asset value, which is, that is the game in sports. Well, good for them. And you've all done that together. And the players will realize a hefty bump when they finally get there.
Well said. So after you leave the WNBA or you're leaving the WNBA, did you know what you were doing next?
No, I didn't know what I was doing next. I was exhausted. I really was.
Bet. A lot.
It was a lot. It was 24/7 all the time. Statement, isn't it?
That's okay.
That's like who's in
It's
Grand
like us, Action Sports Jax, 24/7.
Exactly. It's like who's
all the time.
Who's in Grand Stoom? Okay, hello. So when I got home, I wasn't exactly sure, and so I started my own consultancy company. My phone rang a lot. I picked up some incredible projects, some of which I'm very, very proud of to this day. One of them, the golf industry, called me back and said, "Hey, we did a study with Boston Consulting Group. We found out, and remember, golf now is on a high. If anyone or anything was a winner during the pandemic, it's been golf.
Absolutely.
Like it's like unbelievable.
Amazing.
But before then, it was always kind of like,
where are we going?
Where are we going? So they did this big study, and they found out that women were the biggest consumer segment that wanted to play golf. And they asked me if I would lead this initiative on getting women into the game. And I said, I would love to do that. I said, I think I'm like, my whole life came like it was a confluence, right? I had worked in men's professional golf. I understood the golf industry. My family business was the golf industry. And I just come out of like 6 years of working in women's sports. So I got it all. And so I said, yes, of course. So I put together this package. I wrote a guidebook on how we can address this. And it was fantastic, honestly. It was really, really great. You always have naysayers. Just want to say that no matter who you are, what business you're in, there's always going to be naysayers. I get a call, this person didn't like this name of this team. I'm like, okay. I had Stephen, whatever his name is, Stephen A. Smith. He was on the air every day talking about how terrible the WNBA was. And that's why he annoys me today. Like now he's like, we're your champion. And then he denies that. No, his words hurt us every day. And I'm sorry, but I can't put that aside. That said, so there are people there are golf pros who are like, well, we don't need women. But the truth of the matter is, it really ignited a movement that taught a service industry, which is what, the PGA is, of mostly men, to cater and to understand what a women's customer needs, wants, and how they can interact.
Yeah.
In the golf industry, so now you hit the pandemic, and now not only are more men playing, but tons and tons of women. And it was great. I mean, I'm so proud of that work. I think it should be picked up again because I think it's important. And it's not about DEI or anything like this. It's about building your business. As a matter of fact, when I presented the whole opportunity to grow your business, I didn't talk about women. I talked about purple people. So literally, I'm in a room with 300 men, 6 women. And I said, let me ask you a question. If you had the chance to grow your business, and let me tell you who you can grow your business with. Well, there are people who really like the game. There are people who like to learn, and they have people who have money in their pocket. Would you like to talk to them about doing business at your golf course? The guy goes, yeah, of course we would. I'm like, great. Took a breath and I said, well, they're women. And they all started laughing. And you almost needed that to break the tension because there's always this gender thing that happens in business and life and whatever. But it was like, wait a second, these are people, and these are the people that actually fill out a really good profile for me to build my business. Now I have to understand how to talk to them because I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. And so we did that, right?
Yeah.
And then what is the differences in terms of how you market? And what does your club need maybe to make it in a way that, like your bathrooms need to be clean. Guys, you know what I mean? Like, they might not care. Women care. Okay, we can do that, right? And you can come behind your desk and talk to them, and that would be okay too. And actually, every time you elevate in that way, it's not only good for women, but it's good for the whole industry.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A one-day event for Generation W turned into a Generation W.
It turns into 15 years of impact for a community that I love, honestly, really. It's so great to be able to pour into a place and hopefully be a difference maker. And so Generation W, Generation Wow, Generation Works, all of those things has been a great way to, I think, become a part of this community in a way that is additive. And I felt like I wanted to come home with all, with humility and give a gift to the city where I was going to dig in and really, I lived here all these years, but I was never here. And now I was going to be here. So I wanted to give a gift. I wanted to help elevate how we thought about ourselves and then bring ideas and people and conversation that people otherwise wouldn't have. So why don't we just bring it home and let people have the opportunity to engage? And I think that's important in life, is to open our minds and our hearts to other ideas, new ideas, things that will help elevate how we see ourselves in the world, how we can make the world around us better, all those good things.
And now that leads us to the most recent news. Another new basketball league. Or Upshot League.
Upshot League.
Which really makes a lot of sense given the height of women's sports, given the height of the WNBA and the value and everything going on there, to fill a void. Women's college hoops, right? Professional, there's a...
We call it an opportunity league. I mean, it's a tremendous. If you look at leagues around the world, there's a top league, there's a second league, there's a third league, there's a fourth league, there's a fifth league. In America, we have one thing: we have the WNBA, and we have college, right? Yeah. That college is kind of like club sports around the world, but really, there's not enough jobs in the WNBA, and they have a pace where they're going to create more and more and more. But there's so many athletes and so much great talent and so many communities, right, that would benefit from having their own team. And we thought, what the heck? We'll be the wind beneath their wings and create opportunity for people who otherwise wouldn't have it, and really invest, right, in Savannah, Georgia, and Jacksonville, Florida, and Charlotte, North Carolina, and Greensboro. And I'm not even going to tell you the ones that are coming after, but there are ones already set to come after. Yeah. And so it's fantastic.
It's already got momentum. I mean, so people are seeing this opportunity.
Without a doubt.
What passion meets opportunity, but at some point meets business, right? That can all
right. They all can connect, and that doesn't happen often. So I all of a sudden I realized my kids were saying, "Mom, you're always excited, but like you're off the charts." And I'm like, "Okay, it's the right time. It's the right thing to do for the right reason at the right time with the right people, like Andy Kaufman and Zoya Sports, amazing, right? And the right business model. All those things align behind the Upshot League, right? So for me, I'm like, okay, this is it. This is it. Andy goes, we should do this on our own. Yes, we should, and we are, and it's exhilarating.
Where is women's sports today, in your opinion, versus
Listen,
when you were playing?
Oh my God, it's
I know the numbers
exponentially different.
How many people play sports, right? The numbers are incredible.
Well, like I said, like when I played sports, it was like 1 in 24 girls or something like that, and then it moved to 1 in 2.5. It's probably much less than that now. I don't know. I haven't checked that number, but the number that McKinsey put out the other day, 2 things that really happened that will just tell you how exponentially different it is. 1, 80% of sports fans are interested in women's sports. I was probably 40%, if that. Right?
Is that astonishing to you, that number?
Astonishing. It's amazing. And 50%, so 40% of that number are new fans in the last 5 years. So yes, that's amazing. And the fact that in 2028, the NCAA just signed Lucas Stadium to be the home. And I went and saw Duke play there, right, to win the NCAA men's championship. They're going to play the women's NCAA final there. That doesn't say, oh my God, we're worried about our growth. They're saying we see the growth and we're planning for it. So those things are just incredible. The NWSL quadrupled their revenue, right? They continue to grow. There's new leagues coming out all the time. There's much more media, right? Whether it be streaming, social, network, and even cable. That's making all of this happen. So women's sports as a storyline has been elevated to kind of like the everyday. And that is a huge barrier to cross.
Is it, in a way, mission accomplished already for you?
No.
Or is there a lot more mission to accomplish?
No. Let me just give you one other number. I think men's sports, oh God, and this is it's either 700 billion. No, 700, no, it's over a billion. No, it's a couple of billion. It's a big number, right? Women's sports is like 2.4 billion. And men's sports are like, God, I wish I knew the number because I don't want to be misleading. But it's like, it could be 700 billion. Like, there's such a big gap still of opportunity.
Is that investment or revenue?
Business, over like what the business generates. It's a huge gap. It's not 7 billion because it's a lot more than that. 700. I'm going to find that out. In either case, all I can tell you is when I think about that from an imagery point of view, it's like this.
Yeah, that's big.
Right? So when it's like this, even though we hit 2.5 billion, 3 billion, it's like amazing. There's so much more upside. And isn't that exciting?
That is. It's exciting. I guess, what's the right word? Do you have to close that gap monetarily to feel like the mission is accomplished?
That's a really great question, Ben. I think we got to get a lot closer. I think we really do. There really does need to be, the amount of investment needs to be significant.
Yeah.
When you're talking about paying a quarterback $50 million a year, right? Or you're talking about Steph Curry, I don't know where these guys are.
Some of them $70 million. Yeah.
Right. Their businesses can sustain that, right? So if we're going to be able to pay women on a comparable basis, then you need to be able to generate that. And that comes from, I think, cultural relevancy, the continued ability to show that there's economic returns, right? Look at when I started looking for a team for Jacksonville, Florida, WNBA, talking about 35 million, maybe 50, within a very short amount of time. You offered a team 115 million to move, right? Now they're talking about 250, 300. That was the move that is the showing of growth. Asset value is a real indication of that.
As we finish up with you, do you ever think about your legacy?
I don't think about it. I think about like how many more things I will do. And I think it is really a combination of everything I've done, because the ethos of the Upshot League is so much the ethos of a Generation W, which is about helping everybody to up their shot, right? It's about elevating communities, like what I fundamentally been doing and believe in. So that integration of all of that feels like a capstone in a beautiful way, but we're just at the beginning, so there's no capping any stone right now. I mean, we see a league with, 30 plus teams in a short amount of time. We'll triple in 3 years. That's our goal. And we want to create goodness and invest in communities and create assets that give people, joy.
Could have come to Florida just to sit on the beach, or at least now you could. But, I mean, you're doing more than ever.
Yeah.
No sign of slowing down.
No sign.
That's not in the DNA.
No, it's not in the, no, my initials are D-O. Hello.
Donna Orender, the great Donna Orender.